everybody who's joining us for the Pie Martens class story. We're on chapter 18 of The Mysteries of the Hidden Gold, and we need to find out what's happened to Emily because she may have been shot. Scott hatches a plan. "Oh my God, he's killed Emily," Jack screamed as he stared down at his friend, lying motionless among the rubble and scrubby weeds. Her skin had the greenish-white tinge of fish scales and her eyes were half closed. Drift was whimpering, pawing at Emily's arm and licking her face. Scott took hold of her shoulders and shook her gently. "Emily, can you hear me?" "What are you doing?" Jack yelled. He could feel tears running down his face. "She's not dead," Scott hissed. "Fox didn't even fire the gun. Did you hear a shot?" Jack hastily wiped the tears away with his back of the hand. He could see now the shallow rise and fall of Emily's collarbone above the neck of her white t-shirt. She was breathing. There was no bullet hole, no ooze of scarlet blood. "She's fainted," Scott said. "Maybe it's just from fear." Emily's eyelids flickered. "I did not faint from fear." She spat through gritted teeth. "Drift, stop." Emily laughed as he slobbered on her face. "I twisted my ankle on a rock when I dived for the wall. I must have passed out with pain." She attempted a small wiggle of her foot to check out how things were. "Ah! Not good." It felt as if someone was shattering her ankle bone with a giant hammer. "I'm okay," she said, leaving herself up with her arms, wincing at the twist of pain that accompanied every move. "What's Fox doing now?" Scott peeped over the wall. "He's dragging the chest across the rocks." "If Psycho Fox thinks he's making off with our gold," Jack started to climb over the wall. "Come on, if you all charge down there, we could overpower him with the element of surprise." Scott grabbed Jack's t-shirt and pulled him back down. "Are you off your head? You nearly got us all shot once already." "I knew that gun wouldn't work," Jack retorted. "The gunpowder's damp." Scott stared at Jack. "It could have been kept perfectly dry in that metal box. We were just lucky. Next time it could go off." Fox must have heard the scuffle behind the wall. He looked up from hauling the chest. "I'm not going to waste my time chasing you lot," he shouted. "I want to get out of here before dark. You can stay put until the Coast Guards get here." Jack slid down the wall and sat leaning against the rough stones. This was unbearable. There had to be something they could do. Suddenly he had an idea. If Psycho Fox could call the Coast Guards, why couldn't they? In fact, while they were at it, they could call Detective Inspector Hussain of Crackitstow Police Station and tip off the police to arrest Fox when he tried to return the Green Dolphin to the marina. All they needed was a mobile phone. He didn't have one himself, but Scott and Emily never went anywhere without theirs. "Phone?" he blurted. Of course, Emily's face lit up, but then it dimmed again. "Oh no, I left it in the waterproof bag on Gemini." Scott grinned. "But I didn't." He whipped out his phone out of his pocket and started jabbing at the keys. Then he sank his head in his hands and tugged at his hair. "I don't believe it. No reception." This was the last straw. Scott was so frustrated he couldn't even look at the other two. "Come on," he muttered to Jack. "Let's get Emily inside the monastery. It's getting dark." Together they half walked, half carried her through the arched doorway and made her comfortable on the moss-covered bench. The gloom of the deserted monastery reflected Scott's mood. Long shadows from the setting sun were collecting in the corners. Hand thrust in pockets, he left Emily with Drift and Jack and wandered miserably across the courtyard bordered by the crumbling pillars. He entered the cavernous hall. Narrow tables and benches were blanketed in dust. There was even an old metal goblet and a plate lying in the corner. He mooched along a covered walkway to a row of cell-like rooms, each with a small wooden bed and a cross nailed to it above it. He sank down on a bed. The room was swathed in cobwebs, and the small furry bodies of bats hung from the stone ceiling. Scott shuddered. This place was creepy. As if the ancient monks would be returning any moment to find him trespassing. He was about to hurry away when the door slammed shut in the breeze. For a terrifying moment he thought he was trapped in the dark cell, but the door creaked open when he pushed against it. There was a big old metal key in the lock. Without really thinking, he reached out and turned it back and forth. The lock still worked. That's when the idea came to him. No, it's too complicated, he told himself. Fox will never fall for it. But what did they have to lose? Well, their lives, if Fox managed to get that gun working again. But apart from that, and it could just work. Scott hurried back to Jack, Emily and Drift and knelt down beside them. I've thought of a way we might be able to trap Fox on the island while we get away with the gold, he whispered. We just need to trick him into entering the monastery. Emily smiled, but then she shook her head. You heard him. He's not going to bother chasing us. He might if he thinks we're phoning the police, Scott said. Hello? Have you lost your memory or something? Jack said. No reception. Scott rolled his eyes. I know that. You know that. But Fox doesn't know. Does he? Emily was starting to look intrigued. So what are you thinking? Okay, this is what we do. But we've got to be fast. Hastily, Scott outlined his plan. When he'd finished, Jack stared at him in disbelief. That, he said, is the most totally and utterly insane plan I've ever heard. Then he grinned. Count me in. Me too, Emily said, but I might need a bit of a hand. Scott and Jack pulled Emily up and helped her hobble to the cell with the key in the door. They sat down on the old bed. Somehow we've got to lure him in here, Scott said. One of us could pretend to be talking to the police on the mobile, Jack suggested. He comes running in, we slam the door behind him. Job done. Any volunteers to be the one who gets trapped in here with him? No, I thought not, Scott snapped. He could see his plan unravelling in front of his eyes, like a sleeve with a pulled thread. But Emily jumped in and started to knit it back together. No, wait, I've got an idea. Scott, you've got a voice recorder on your phone, haven't you? We'll record a fake conversation with the police, then put it on play and leave it in here. We might lose the phone, but at least we'll all be outside. They were back on track. Brilliant, Scott said. Okay, Em, you record the message, then leave the phone in here and hide in the next room. You can make it that far on your own? Of course I can, Emily said. I'll hop if I have to. While you do that, Jack and I will go back behind the wall and have a loud argument about calling the police. If we're lucky, Fox is still close enough to hear us. That should get him up here like a shot. Yeah, Emily said with a grin. It's the shot part I'm worried about. Come on, let's do it, Jack shouted. The boys sprinted out of the monastery. There was no time to lose. Scott peeked over the low wall. Simon had hauled the chest halfway to the shore, but was now sitting on it, having a rest. It was hard to tell whether he was still within earshot, but they had to give it a try. What do you mean you dropped the phone? Scott yelled at the top of his voice. I had it a minute ago, Jack bellowed back. If we don't find that phone, we can't call the police. Jack glanced over the wall. Psycho Fox was looking up towards the wall, frowning. Keep going, he hissed to Scott. I think he's heard us. It must be here somewhere, Scott shouted. It is, Jack cried. I found it. Dial 999 quickly. Jack looked over the wall again. Simon had taken the bait. He was running up the slope towards them. In the twilight, Jack could make out the shape of the rifle in his hand. Oh, no, you don't, Fox yelled. Give me that phone. Run for it, Jack grabbed Scott's arm and they bolted into the monastery. Meanwhile, Emily had been at work in the cell. First, she sat for a moment and closed her eyes. The throbbing in her ankle was getting worse. She'd been determined not to let the boys know how bad it was, but she felt dizzy, as if she might be sick at any minute. I have to focus. Drift whimpered sympathetically. Emily took a deep breath and pressed record on Scott's phone. Hello, she said in a loud voice. Crackerstow Police Station. I'd like to report a robbery. A man called Simon Fox. Yes, the police, please. I'm on Gulliver's Island. That's right, Simon Fox. We need the Coast Guard. She kept talking into the phone as long as she dared. Then she eased herself down from the bed, placing all her weight on her good leg. Timing was everything. She had to leave herself long enough to get out of the room, but if she pressed play on the phone too soon, the message might finish before Fox got close enough to hear it. Clinging to the wall for balance, she made her way to the door. Then she turned the volume to maximum, pressed play, and slid the phone across the floor into the back corner of the room. "Come on, Drift," she said. "Let's get out of here." And we'll have to join us tomorrow to see whether their plan has worked. Take care.